What's up, guys? Welcome to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Palantir stock, ticker symbol PLTR, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Friday, February 23rd. Well, guys, Palantir stock today finished up 85 cents a share, 3.74%. We had a big after-hours move last night. A lot of the tech sector really did off of NVIDIA's sort of eye-popping earnings and especially guidance. And Palantir here today did give back a little bit of the move, but holding 3.74%, I mean, listen, I'll take it as well as cracking 23 bucks a share. So let's take a look at this starting on the 1-minute chart here. So you guys will very commonly hear me talk about how after hours and pre-market needs to be taken with a grain of salt, especially if volume is lower, which it almost always is, assuming we don't have a direct that particular security specific catalyst, like for example an earnings on this particular name, right? This was a sympathy move in relation to the entire tech sector, NVIDIA being such a big percentage of the overall market at this point now, right? But if we zoom back out, you can see here that we cracked 23 in after hours. So this actually wasn't all that unexpected. When we saw that fade beginning off of those pre-market highs, we then opened and got a relatively high volume dump off to around that 23 region, caught ourselves a little bit early, of course, and then basically consolidated into the close, catching volume weighted average price as support kind of mid-morning. Now remember here, these tests, don't ever be expecting an exact penny, unless you're looking at a stock that's priced extremely low, or an exact penny would be reasonable. On a stock, even like Palantir, it's a $23 stock, we're always looking at TA as more of a range, okay? To me, I would call this a test and hold of 23, at least here today. Let's move on now to the 5-minute. What I want to do is look at volume on that bigger dump-off move that we saw this morning, contextually compared to what we might typically see at the open. And volume on that opening candle was high. It was a big range candle, but the following candles actually, you would consider, okay, so this opening candle was about 5 million shares. The average midday was probably about 300 to 400,000 shares. But these candles on the bounce off 23 actually held 3.5 million shares, 2.7 million shares, and you would expect that volume would fall after the opening candle anyway, contextual, right? It's very rarely literal when we're looking at the market. So you can see here that this was actually relatively reasonable, or within reason based on yesterday's opening candle, between 4 and 5 million. It wasn't so ridiculously high, comparatively speaking, even given the catalyst of a downside test of 23 and the first 5 minutes of regular trading hours after the big catalyst last night of NVIDIA earnings. So let's move on now and start taking a look at levels to watch as we head into tomorrow, Friday. Okay, so this is the 30-minute chart. You can see here I have the most typical, most common, most self-fulfilling prophecy levels available to us, the 50 period and the 200 period. Those are the only two I really care about on these longer time frame charts, like the 30-minute, 4-hour, and daily. And when we were discussing this name last night, we were talking a lot about that 50, okay? Now, as we head into tomorrow, we have reclaimed the 50 period here on the 30-minute chart. That's a beautiful thing. But tomorrow, since we're right up against that, from a bullish perspective, I'm going to want to see that hold and ideally see a bounce away from that region as quickly as we possibly can get up toward that 200 period, which is currently about 3.3%, just in that general direction. If we were to see a test of the 200, of course, ideally we got rejected. We got rejected off that this morning, so ideally I'd want to see that break and hold as well, though that would be a pretty volatile day, okay? Bears, really simple for you guys here on the 30-minute chart. You're going to want to see a downside crack of the 50 period. And bulls, always understand that you need to understand the other side's psychology almost better than your own side. So when I'm talking bullish and bearish perspective, whether you are bullish or bearish, I encourage you to always pay attention to the other side as well, as kind of a what not to look for deal, right? That can help you make better decisions. I think that's the way I like to look at things. So let's move on now to the 4-hour chart and take a look here. You can see that clearly that 50 period is in play here on the 4-hour. We did get rejected off of that in pre-market. So really simple here, what I'm looking for, bullish perspective, we're about 3.6% away from that 50 period of an upside move away. I really ideally would like to see that reclaim as soon as possible. You know, again, we're talking 3.5%, but we have to keep in mind that today was a 3.74% day, and we've seen crazier things out of Palantir. So that's what us bulls will be looking for. Bears, what we're going to want to see here is a rejection off of that 50 period upon any retest, but ideally, if you're a bear, you would not want to see 3.5% against you. So continuation downside, start getting this 50 period to curl over here. And, you know, really a lot of bears on the 4 hour are going to be looking down toward 20 bucks a share, overlooking these two levels, which we'll get to here on the daily, but looking down toward that next level of right around 19, that 200 period. Though that is a relatively wide gap, so understand it's going to depend, of course, bear to bear, what their intended trade time frame is. Is this more of a macro play or more of a short-term play? The shorter term the play, of course, typically the tighter risk and tighter reward they're likely going for on that particular trade. Now, the daily chart, this is arguably the most important. We reclaimed 23 today. You can see here on the daily, it's pretty obvious that we tested that, and we've been playing around that level for the last 2 or 3 trading days now. Really simple here. Again, when it's simple, don't overcomplicate it. Here's what I'm looking at on Palantir in the big picture, okay, as we head into tomorrow, but the big picture like the daily chart. From a bullish perspective, hold 23, head up toward 25. That's all I'm thinking if I'm a bull. If I'm a bear, you know, 25 would kind of, I think, honestly, guys, with bears, I think 25 or 25, like, an all-time high, we could say, like 25.55, 25.60, even a break of 25. I think some multi-week short swing trade style bears, that might be where a lot of them are placing stops. So you might see some additional volume around that region, but bears, 25 is your enemy, 23, a break downside of 23, is your best friend. That's what you're looking for here if you're a bear. Now, options bias here on Palantir today. We had 564,000 total contracts traded today, 451,000, almost 452,000 calls today, 113,000 puts. Very, very call heavy here on the ratio today. The short-term speculators, the 0 to 20 delta range, you can see here about 113,000 calls, about 53,000 puts. And as you go down the line, every single delta range, that's short-term, mid-term, long-term, out of the money, at the money, and in the money, all leaning rather heavily to the bullish side, which leads us to a very, very heavy overall call bias on the overall call put ratio. Let me know what you guys think here as we head into the end of the week down in the comment section. And by the way, if you got value out of this video, I will keep covering Palantir stock every single day moving forward. So I appreciate you. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.